Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Bits episode. You join me with the new Kia EV6. This is the one that's just been moved production over to Georgia, and it is sort of the 2025 refresh. And you also join me with the new IONIQ 5, similar, also built in Georgia. Both of these cars have undergone some pretty significant updates for their 2025 model year, including a NACS port, US production, new software, and a bunch of other changes that I'm going to walk through with my friend Bob from the Electric Principal YouTube channel. I'll leave that linked down below. And basically, we're just going to run through the new IONIQ 5 and EV6. Maybe, of course, you'll get some of our thoughts as to which ones we prefer throughout this quick and fun video. Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing this over.
Oh, my pleasure.
So we stole this from the Hyundai dealer in Loveland, Colorado.
Correct.
What's the name of the dealer?
Crossroads Hyundai.
So shout out to those guys. And then this came from our longtime supporters, Fort Collins Kia. And you know what? It's just so cool to have these two refreshed models side by side, sort of sister cars.
Exactly.
They're both built on e-GMP, but the platform underwent some pretty big changes for this year, including new battery packs, revised motors. They don't actually say that, but they drive differently, different suspensions, structural reinforcements, a little bit different packaging as well.
And they're quieter.
Yeah, that's right. Better NVH as well.
Absolutely.
Having this on the highway, I was pretty impressed with the noise. I haven't driven the 2025 IONIQ 5 yet, but Jordan has.
Yes.
And we have a whole video with a car that we borrowed from Crossroads Hyundai, as well as when he went on the IONIQ 5 XRT launch. Because as part of the 2025 model year, there's now this off-road rally trim that you can get in this. This is not that, but
no.
Have you seen one come through yet?
Yeah, we sold one last week, so they're here.
Okay.
Yeah,
very
they're pretty cool. You know?
Yeah.
And they come with cool stuff that is almost limited. Like it's got the bird's eye camera. It's got all kinds of features that I like, because I'm a terrible parker, so I need a bird's eye camera. But you pay about $2,000 less for it than you would a limited.
Oh, wow.
And it's very Colorado-y.
Yeah, it's perfect for around here. A little bit lifted. A buddy of mine has one in California. I ran into him on Angeles Crest Highway, and he was ripping it up and down the canyons, and it looked awesome. He had the baby seat in the back, and he was just like full opposite lock around some corners. That's one thing we really have to commend Hyundai and Kia on. These cars do drive really well.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've had a lot of customers and met a lot of people in the EV market here in the northern Colorado area for multiple different brands. What is the general impression of Tesla owners or others that go to the IONIQ 5?
Well, I just had one yesterday come in, and he was trying to learn how to hook his phone up to use it as a key, right? Because he's a Tesla owner.
Oh, these now have phone as a key.
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Right. Another update.
And so does the IONIQ 6, and that does. You know, it took us 3 years, but we got it.
Yeah.
And you know, he told me he doesn't miss his Tesla at all.
Wow.
And so he really enjoys driving it. It's a good car. And people love them. They really do. And but a lot of people who buy these cars aren't necessarily experienced in EVs at all, Kyle. I'd say the people who show up at that showroom with those salesmen, about 70% have never driven an EV before.
Really?
Yeah, and I always think it's first love. You know, the first EV you get in, it's like a revelation. You love it, and it's like, I love this car. Yeah. I'm not looking any further. I'm buying it. You know,
wow. So. Super impressive. So what makes the IONIQ 5 such an attractive value? The lease prices are great on these things right now. The styling is awesome. The size is right. So many of our viewers watching this video probably drive IONIQ 5s. My dad's had one.
Yeah.
It sort of has captured that pretty big sales market, and I feel like there's even more IONIQ 5 momentum than ever right now.
Yeah, and I think the key to this car is it's super comfortable, super simple to drive. You know, you can just get into the basics of it and run this car and you're happy. Or, you know, if you can think it, you can pretty much change it on these cars, and it goes way beyond my average consumer's needs or wants, but you can do that. And the thing just has so much room in the back. That's what makes this car sellable. You open up the back, fold down the seats. There's a ton of room in this car, more than you'd think it would have. And you know, the other thing is both these cars always do well in ratings when people review them.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people who buy these have already looked at the reviews. They, you know, and that's why they come in and buy them.
Makes sense. Well, speaking of trunk space, let's actually get into a little bit of a comparison between the two.
Sure.
Let's open up the trunk of the IONIQ 5, because in the rear is where most of the changes happen. And I think it's worth mentioning before we open this up, the IONIQ 5 for 2025. Big changes. First of all, we mentioned US production.
Right.
And that also comes along with the first vehicle to launch that's a non-Tesla with the North American Charging Standard J3400 port. Have customers, do they even know about this? You mentioned a lot of them are new EV drivers.
Yeah.
Do they care?
You know what? I would tell you that you know, same percentage. They don't even know about it. They don't understand why it's there.
Right.
But you know, we explain to them that it just opens up the world here, right? I mean, now that we can plug all cars into all kinds of chargers, it just it makes the world a better place to drive.
And are you finding them using EA or superchargers more, or what are you finding?
I think a lot of customers, once they learn that EA charges much quicker than anything else,
Yeah.
if they can get to the one at the Target store here, because it's always busy.
It's always busy.
They still use EA for it.
And they just have to use an adapter
Right,
to
but-
CCS.
But it'll be interesting because now no one's giving away free charging. I mean,
Right.
it's so limited. Now it's really the fair market.
Which is great. I think
Yeah.
a lot of IONIQ 5 owners, I always called it, we had the old people club at our local EA station. They all had ID4s and IONIQ 5.
Yeah.
They would sit there to 100%, clog up the whole station, and they lived 1 mile away. And they had a charger at home, but they were saving the $8 or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
So I feel like I'm so happy we're done with these free charging
It
programs.
was a good thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you can shop based off of price and amenities, and it prioritizes home charging, which is the thing
Right,
to do.
and everybody charges at home now because in Fort Collins it's like 8 cents a kilowatt. We have insanely cheap energy.
Yes.
we're lucky to live here,
Yeah.
and off peak you can't beat that. It's
No.
like $2.40 to drive 100 miles in these cars when you charge at home, and who doesn't like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just think, you know, it's commendable that they went and did this charging port. I do think the supercharger access makes it easier for people.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to hear that maybe customers aren't taking full advantage as we would have imagined them to do it.
Yeah, and but I think as people get more experienced, they'll do it because Tesla chargers always work.
Yeah.
You know, you rarely find one that doesn't work. And this car charges at around 130 kilowatts. It starts at 130. It goes almost to 80% before it drops off.
Yep.
And so really the charging speed is really good. It sure beats the heck out of my Ford Lightning.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so that is the thing. The boosting capability of this was upped from somewhere around 80 kilowatts in 2024 up to the 130 now that it can do, right?
Yeah, I think the best I ever did was about 98 kilowatts.
Okay, yeah.
on a supercharger, but that was also using the Magic Dock. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think that would make a
No,
difference.
it doesn't make any
Thank
difference.
you.
It could have been around 100
Yeah.
kilowatts. But what's interesting is the IONIQ 5, so both of these cars are built in the same plant now in West Point, Georgia. But what's interesting is the charge port is on the rear passenger side of this one. But
Yeah.
for the refresh of the EV6, they moved it to the native Tesla charging location. And this is only for North American spec vehicles. So all of the Georgia-built EV6s will now launch, of course, with NACS, same as that car, same boosting power, 130 kilowatts. And it's on the correct side, though. So you don't
Yeah, it
take
is.
up
I
two
agree.
ports. So they did a nice job here. What's interesting is if you buy the EV6 GT, which is the spicy one, the port's on this side.
No, I didn't know that, Kyle.
Yeah, because that one's built in Korea. And I think it will also have CCS. I don't think it'll have NACS,
Yeah.
which is really funny.
Yeah, but the IONIQ 9's coming with the NACS port, so
That's
good.
correct. Yeah. So I've driven that one. Let's open up the trunks. And I guess on the way, we've been talking charging performance. New for 2025 as well is a new battery in these vehicles.
Yep.
So we've gone from 77-ish kilowatt hours up to 84 kilowatt hours. Basically a new generation of cell. And dude, this is so big back here. It's unbelievable.
You know, and it's what makes this car great is just this. You know, you pull a seat bar, it comes down, and you've got enough room for a St. Bernard back here.
Absolutely, without question. And what's nice is while there's no specific dog mode, you can leave climate on.
Right.
And so you can either go into utility mode, which is what my colleague Colton does with his EV6 all the time. He has to go into utility mode, reach in, and lock the car, roll up the window. That way it's locked and running.
Yeah.
So they're still like a little bit of software, I think slightly behind, but you had mentioned a lot of your customers just use the new wireless CarPlay now.
Right, and they love it.
And that's, you know, they're just happy with that.
They're happy with that. And you know, what literally happens is, I don't sell these cars, but if I work with a customer, I set the car up for them. Because most of them many of them wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because they don't, you know, they come in with a flip phone and they want one of these. I'm in trouble.
A lot of older people buying new electric
absolutely.
cars. Yeah, which is all the more reason to make the software more intuitive.
I think so.
Let's show the EV6 back here, just in terms of trunk space, because you know we can go in and do a whole EV6 versus Ioniq 5 video, but I think the way to think about it is they're really, you know, they're sister cars, very similar platform, but totally different vibe. This sloping roofline in the back, to me, ruins the EV6. You just cannot put dogs back here, which is pretty difficult. Now, it's the same length. If you were to fold these seats down, I can pop this one down right here, of course. And so, you know, very similar length from the entry point of the trunk up there. But just the higher roof line of the Ioniq 5 is so much more practical. Now, on the downside of that, Bob, we were talking about, this is a less efficient car, the Ioniq 5.
Correct.
Yep. So the EV6 gets a little bit more mileage, a little bit more range. But I think you would probably agree, in normal day-to-day driving, it's fine.
Yeah. You know, you would not believe the number of people who buy EVs and never road trip them.
Right.
They just don't.
Absolutely.
You know, and so for them, it's really more of a family truckster choice.
And I would say, even if you do go on a road trip, if you use the high power charging stations with the adapter now,
Right.
which is a little bit odd, I think, you know, like maybe they went to NACS a bit early, was my impression.
Yeah.
But if you use the adapter and use a high voltage charging station, this is still a great road tripper.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the best. And now that you've got the rear wiper.
Thank God.
So yeah, tell us about that. Were customers happy to see this?
Oh, they were. And customers who bought 24s and 23s are not happy, and they have to go buy a add-on product that's like $300 made in Europe.
Oh, wow.
But the idea that this was going to protect the rear windshield never worked.
Right, you can even see this is all dirty.
Oh, it gets dirty in an instant, and so I'm glad they did that. But that, you know, that car companies do need to listen to their customers sometimes, and it seems like that's happening more often.
Yeah.
You know, this refresh, it's 3 years old. They refreshed the cars in 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some car companies are going to be 6-7 years before they would do that.
Sure, and then you got China Speed, which is like a year,
like
new car.
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months, which is, you know, we're just seeing this huge spread.
Yeah.
In general, though, I think what would be cool is, I think we should show everyone the new CCNC software in the cars.
Okay.
So both vehicles, and I have the Kia set up so we can show in there. They're very, very similar from a software standpoint. So let's jump in the Kia, and we'll talk a little bit about the new updated infotainment. So Bob, you can grab the passenger seat.
Yep.
And let me show you guys what's going on back here. Then I want to get into price and just talk a little bit about why you would choose one over the other. So just like both cars, we've got AC seats and heated seats, which is nice. We've got not as big of a glass roof in this particular one as that one has.
Right.
But the options and packages can be found online, and people can, you know, learn about all of that. This is one of the slowest systems to start up, for example, because right now we're in.
Yeah.
So I had hit the start button 30 seconds ago, and now we're finally into the software. The other day, yesterday, I got in this car and I wanted to put on manual preconditioning for the high voltage battery. And it was a good minute and a half before it would let me get into the EV menu, which even that's super laggy.
That doesn't seem right to me. You know? It seems like this, I don't, my experiences hasn't been that slow, but this is slow.
Yeah, no question. And it could just be this particular car is clogged up for whatever reason, but that was my experience with the pre-refresh cars, and here it is again with this. But you're saying the Ioniq 5, and at least from what you've seen, it hasn't been that laggy.
Well, you know, when you get used to a vehicle and you use it all the time, I just may not notice. Mm-hmm. And you know, you drive everything. So you know what super fast is, but we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, you know, the Ioniq 5 is off right now.
Yeah.
And we'll basically wake it up and see what happens.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. I really have to commend Kia specifically for changing the steering wheel in this new one. Not only is it a new steering wheel with a power column, which is kind of nice. I'm fine with a manual column too, but this is okay. They've also redid the whole front end steering feel. And so it actually steers a little bit better than the last car. And I have to say their one pedal driving is a little bit smoother, and there's just nice little massaged updates throughout. But I love this new wheel compared to the previous generation. I still don't like the square top and bottom, but the last one had this big fat Kia thing in the middle, and it was so ugly.
Yeah.
And it was reason enough to buy the IONIQ 5 over the last one. In terms of lane centering and driver assistance and stuff like that, both of these vehicles can be had with HDA2 that supports lane changes and head-up display, and they're pretty much identical in that sense. And there's no real change from last year.
Right. Kyle, where's the sensor that looks at your eyes, and does this one have that?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's Jordan. He hates it, but
Okay. Okay. I got to ask
that's
Jordan.
because he never looks at the road. He's playing with stuff.
He's doing something else other than driving. That's funny. No, I've been driving this for the last 3 days or so, and I haven't had it ding at me once, and I've definitely been distracted. It just looks for capacitive touch in the wheel, and then it's letting me know I'm there. So this has received some updates. So we are now on CCNC, which is the next iteration of Hyundai Kia's infotainment package, and it is, I would say, a marginal improvement from before. First of all, it supports wireless CarPlay, which is a huge upgrade because this system itself isn't all that useful, I think. Most customers set it up once or have you set it up.
Right.
And then they just use CarPlay. And
Correct.
that works. And that's totally fine. But it does support now route planning and some other things in the navigation menus, which is nice. But you can see you just scroll through your main apps. Whoops, hit the wrong button. We'll go back. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm curious to see if the route planning works as expected. This is a weird nitpick, I can't stand that it beeps every time I touch the screen. And you can turn that off, but it should be off by default. So let's do the typical Las Vegas run, and let's see how well it does. So first of all, it's picked up not where I want to go, like most cars should. It's picked up everything in Colorado. So now we have to put Nevada. There we go. And it's not totally downtown, but we'll just choose Vegas Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so we're thinking. We'll go here. House number 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Okay, displaying a nearby location. Let's hit route. With Kia Connect, so I may not have Kia Connect active.
You will not get anything on that.
Right.
One of the things that's changed in these cars is they're really, really dependent on you having in the Hyundai world BlueLink, because it's almost unusable without.
We've got to log in with our phone number or email.
Yeah, it wants you to start doing that, and you won't be able to finish it because you're not the owner of the car.
Right.
So,
of course.
So yeah.
So that's a bit of a pain. I think that should be built in. Route planning kind of needed.
Right. Okay. Voice commands work great on it when you've got that all hooked up. But it's interesting to note that the car will show you the first 4 stops. It doesn't show you all of them across the whole route because it's updating, how many chargers are being used, and it changes it because of where you end up stopping. Now, I would like to see where I'm going from start to finish. But that's something that I think is a little funky that I'm sure both cars are using now.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, we're looking at a lot of new vehicles, so Rivian, Tesla, Lucid. We're also looking at the Chinese cars that have been coming, and even some other automakers that are launching, not so much with this little tiny screen here, but with like a big iPad-looking thing.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Americans who just want an old school car with physical touch buttons and none of that. However, I do think that just having the screen so far away and so small and very limited or tied to certain functions, this is my biggest issue with these cars. And I would actually say Hyundai and Kia agree, because we've just seen a sneak preview of their new operating system, which is going to have a big screen that honestly looks like someone just described the Tesla OS over the phone. And I'm like, let's just put that in the cars, from 3 years ago, and this wouldn't be an issue at all.
Right.
And so this, while it is nice to have the updates, it's nice to have the phone as a key with NFC reader and all that, I still think this is behind the times, and most people just rely on CarPlay because it's not worth dealing with any of this.
And I agree, and it's another reason why leasing is a better option when no matter what brand you're looking at, because change is happening in dog years in these things, and even in 3 years there's been a lot of changes, and I can't imagine what's going to happen, and I don't want to own a car for more than 3 years anymore.
Totally agree. I mean, even vehicles that promise over-the-air software updates eventually become limited by their hardware. We've never seen one that hasn't. Even first-gen Rivians, that's all old school, and they're kind of, they're still getting updated, but, the new Gen 2 stuff's getting left behind.
Yeah.
Same with Tesla. Tesla's now offering free FSD transfers if you transfer your car to a new one because they don't want to upgrade the computer in your old one. It's going to cost them a lot of money.
And they want to have you buy a new one.
Right,
so.
of course, and they got to sell cars. So anyway, the interior of the EV6, not much has changed in here from a layout standpoint. This is all pretty much the same as before. I still think it's crazy that there's start buttons in an electric car. You should just hit the brake and go. Your Mini has a start button, right?
Right.
Interesting. And your Lightning.
Right.
And your Mach-E.
Right.
So you own a lot of cars with start buttons, but you have had Teslas in the past.
I've had Teslas, and to be honest, Volkswagen had issues with their software, but that's one thing they put in. You just sit in the car and touch the brake and it starts.
Right there. Even from Gen 1 ID4, it would start and go. And so I can't believe that we haven't gotten there yet with this stuff. Let's go in the IONIQ 5 because they have updated the whole interior for 2025. So let's take a look at that one over there. By the way, the color that you brought along, digital teal, is that the name of that one? In this, I think this is digital teal, right?
Yep, digital teal.
And this was, I can't remember the name of this one, nebular blue. All right, let's jump in this thing.
All right, let's go.
Well, first of all, the interior is so much nicer in this car, I think.
Yeah.
You sit certainly a lot higher than the EV6, just an airier feel in IONIQ 5. And we'll get into, some of the reasons why you would buy one over the other. But again, new steering wheel with the 4 dots to indicate charging and other stuff, which is funny. Let's do the startup test. Let's see if it's laggy. So it's funny, you got to hit a start button. So we're on. We're going to see how long it takes to get loaded in. It's thinking. Guessed, confirm, it is faster.
Yeah.
And we're still, it's still not like instant, but we're getting there.
But if we had the Blue Link, it would work. And now we got our Apple CarPlay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but it's nice to have, nice to have wireless CarPlay. I can go back to the main screen here, and they do look very similar in both cars. So they both beep every time you touch the screen, which is hilarious. And boom, you can get right to manual battery preconditioning. But this feels snappier than the Kia.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no question. This is a much snappier response, and we're dealing with CarPlay in the background too. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who would have imagined that? So we also have a digital rearview mirror in this particular one, which is pretty cool, and that's something that the EV6 does not support. So I really like that. Inside, Hyundai has their own gauge design compared to Kia. I actually prefer this design language.
It's much better than the old one. I hated the old one.
Yeah, way better than the old one. Absolutely. And this is very similar to what we'll see in IONIQ 9 as well. And so this is what's new here. So not only did they, for the IONIQ 5 next generation, sort of change up the battery pack and everything else, they actually changed the whole center console design. And I imagine a lot of this came from customer feedback as well.
I agree.
And they've got the big phone charger right there.
And one of the things they did was they simplified all the menus. It might take 3 or 4 steps. They actually eliminated a number of menu options and just brought it to you right away. And this also helps, right? Because I'm not having to go to the screen to go to a separate menu to turn on my heated seat and heated steering wheel.
Right. That was always super clunky in these cars. You'd have to hit climate, then in, and then choose the level.
Crazy.
And I just got a button right there. Boom, done.
Right.
And I guess if you're not going to do software well, put in hard buttons. That's my view.
Yeah. Well, people seem to love buttons. They do.
I mean, it is an interesting thing. We had a conversation over lunch where we're sort of getting into potential shoppers and buyers that are future focused and those that prefer sort of an old school experience.
Right.
And there has to be cars built for both types of people. And I definitely lean more towards the future side. Like, I think this is messy and confusing, and I can't understand why you would do this until you go and use this system and go, what the heck are they thinking selling this in 2025? And then, hearing your comments from, the actual people buying this car, which are probably older folks in general that don't want to adapt to new stuff or learn a lot. Buttons do make a lot of sense in that case.
Yep. And it just eases the transition for people to electric. And, that's one of the functions of having buttons and making it familiar. Because there are so many people who want to buy an EV, but they're petrified. They are absolutely petrified of can they run this, can they operate it? And when they find out they can, and when they find out there's buttons and they can do that, they're thrilled.
Yeah, totally. Well, I have to say, just sitting here, I much prefer the IONIQ 5 experience to the EV6. And I really like the updates they've done to it for 2025. NACS port, as Electrify America and EVgo and Iona have been installing native NACS locations now, the need for an adapter will become less. And also, this is a car that's going to last on the road for 10, 20, 30 years. We will be all NACS ports by then.
Right.
And so this makes a lot of sense.
And it's interesting to see between the two cars what they've adopted. Like, for example, like the new Kia 6 has a button right here to push in your mode of what you're driving.
Yeah, and then they've got
that's what this car company put on their new XRT, but it's absent here.
Right.
You know, you've got that. So it's just interesting which technology they adopted, what they changed.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's really cool to see, you know, certainly under one brand in terms of global design, but then the Hyundai people did their thing and the Kia people did their thing.
Right. And I think they try to outdo each other. So that car came out a few months after this car, and the engineers are saying, well, we can't have it. We got to update this, and this.
Yeah.
So that's a healthy competition.
Let's pop outside. Let's just do one quick final thought here, but I agree. Software is a little bit snappier in this one in terms of response. And, you know, Bob, from my impression, I would choose the IONIQ 5 over the EV6 all day long, specifically the IONIQ 5N from my perspective.
Yeah.
I like a spicy car, of course,
Yeah.
and that's a fun one. So, you know, from your position, I mean, you know, you're dealing with customers way more than, you know, I'm dealing with nerd YouTube viewers, basically. A very small subset of the buying
And
public.
they're sharp.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, we're really spoiled to have such an educated viewer base. The general consumer is not that, though. So if you park these cars next to each other, what do you think most people are going to choose and why?
Well, I you know, it's a fact that, you know, they sell almost 6 of these cars to one of those.
Wow.
And that was the older generation. And I think it's not so much the interior or how it works. I think you pointed out with a hatchback, and I think you also pointed out the fact that you sit up higher. And so, believe it or not, when people are in their 55, 60, 65, they have a hard time getting into cars.
Yep.
They got arthritic joints, and so when they get into this, that's why you do it. I personally would have bought an IONIQ 6 when they came out. I love those cars. But I had my wife get in it, and it's like, you know, she picked this car immediately. There was not even a choice, and it was all based on the seats.
How about that? How about that? So in terms of price, you know, they're very equivalently priced, and their lease deals tend to swap. Sometimes you'll find the better EV6 lease deal. Sometimes you'll find the better IONIQ 5 lease deal. And that's what I've always recommended to our viewers is like buy the one that's cheaper, because I'm sure you would agree, especially with electric cars, most people are leasing them.
Oh yeah, the vast majority, and it's their first lease. And some of them, the salesman actually, when they try to talk a customer into leasing, they're suspicious because they've been told by their dad back in 1971 that you should never lease a car. Well, the world's changed completely from then.
And the depreciation on a new electric car is really scary because there just doesn't seem to be a floor.
Well, and the issue is, you know, first of all, they get tax credits or equivalent given by the company. So your car loses value the day you take it off the lot, because if someone's looking for a used car, well,
yeah,
they
they're
can
taking
buy
$7,500 off right there. Yeah.
Plus in Colorado, another $3,200.
Right, we're like 10 grand. Yeah.
It just makes it tough. But leasing is definitely the smartest thing to do, and there's no doubt that in 3 years, every car company is going to have something brand new. They're going to make quantum leaps.
So that brings up the point on leasing, which is I mentioned that sometimes the EV6 is lease better 1 month, sometimes these do another month. But regardless, these are, you know, basically $50,000 to $60,000 cars. That one's actually almost $63,000, I think. That one's really expensive because it's a fully spec EV6.
Yeah.
You can lease those for like $300-400 a month.
It's insane.
It's insane.
You know, and that's the thing, customers, you know, even if you're not that picky about price, it's going to be $50 difference. It's going to be $100 difference. Buy the car you like the best. Go drive it.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty amazing. And you know, a lot of our viewers will say they can't lease a car because of the mileage fees. It's like 25 cents a mile overage fees. I guarantee you the depreciation is going to hurt you worse if you buy one versus just paying the over mileage on a lease.
That makes sense. And you know, you can ask people for a 15,000 mile lease. You know, it might cost you $60, $70 more, 3,000 more miles. Heck, that's good. Buy two, you know, one of each, and then just switch cars, you know, when you get too close on the miles. I mean, it's literally to the point you can do that.
Absolutely. We just did a video with the Kia dealer. They're doing $99 a month Kia Niro leases right now. I mean, that is a free car, essentially, in terms of just fuel savings. So I can't thank you enough for bringing the new IONIQ 5 out here. I think it's worth commending Hyundai Motor Group, which spans both of these vehicles, and also the new GV60, a sister vehicle to these as well, of just, you know, it is great to see customer focused changes. Going with the rear wiper is amazing. Going with the new charging port in a market that's not really native, you know, here in the U.S. to Kia or Hyundai. However, I will say in South Korea they also use the NACS port, so it made it a little bit easier for them. But in general, really high praise from my side on the changes that we're seeing. I really love the charge port swap in the EV6. I talked to the Hyundai engineers about it on this car. They couldn't do it because of a body and white issue. They wanted to put the charge port on this side for this car, and they said too complicated to change it, but the EV6 was already provisioned for it, so it was easy to do it on that one. So with all that said, thank you very much. Subscribe to The Electric Principle over here. Again, channel will be linked, and we should do more videos together.
Oh, it's fun. I like being in your orbit.
Yeah, it is fun. It's enjoyable both ways. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in another one again soon. Bye-bye.